Hey everyone, it's Emily, and today I'm going to be doing the rapid fire book tag. I've been seeing this go around a few booktubers that I really like to follow recently, and it just re-inspired me to do this book tag. So I'm going to try to see how truly rapid fire I can do this and how little editing I can do for future Emily, so hopefully she appreciates that. I'm also here chilling with Apollo. Hi Apollo. He's having none of this camera business. So let's see if we can just chug on through some of these questions. I just thought this was a fun tag. So let's just get started. The first question is ebook or physical book? Definitely physical book. I'm just a super tactile person. I really like the physical act of holding a book. So for sure physical book. The only ebooks I have, I literally I never read, and I haven't read any of them because I just don't read via ebook. Next question is paperback or hardback? This is a hard one, and I'm going to kind of say both for this one because paperbacks are easier to travel with, they're just lighter, or if I'm just like laying down in bed reading, they're just lighter and they're just easier to have at night as I'm reading. Especially if I have a large fantasy, I prefer that in paperback because it's a hassle and it's just very heavy to read. If it's a large hardback, they just sometimes weigh a lot, and so sometimes it's just easier to have a paperback in that case or travel with the paperback. But hardbacks, of course, are just kind of sturdier and last longer, and can just sometimes be nicer longer on your shelf. So next question is online or in-store book shopping? Definitely in-store book shopping. I could spend literally all of my life just surrounded by books and nothing else, and like, okay, maybe not literally nothing else, because like, be nice to have occasional human content, but I could just spend my life surrounded by books and be happy, and I could just live in a bookstore forever and be happy. So definitely bookstore or in-store book shopping. Next question is trilogies or series? So this is another one that I've kind of both. So trilogies I think are a really good length in general for series, because it's enough time to really develop a world and get to know some characters and kind of really flesh out a really cool plot. That's kind of a good length to do that, I think, for a lot of fantasies that I've read. But it is also nice for longer series that you just have a lot of books to come back to, new books to come back to as you're first reading the series, to re-fall in love with the world and go back to the world and to the characters. That just can be a lot of fun. So also both for that. Next one is heroes or villains? Also kind of both for that one, I guess, because I mean, you need both in a book, and hopefully you can have both well-developed heroes and well-developed villains. It's just a nice contrast, right? Like, it's fun to have a hero that you can root for. Hopefully that's, not a perfect character, and it's still complex. But hopefully you have a good hero that you can root for and want to follow and be interested in. But it's also nice to get a really cool and complex villain that has an interesting story. Kind of, you can understand their motivations, or at least some things behind why they're doing what they're doing. And that can also just be really interesting and a nice contrast to the hero. So, both. A book you want everyone to read is the next question. And, the first things that are popping to mind are the middle grade fantasies I've read recently, and that includes The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill and Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. Those books were both just so whimsical and delightful and wonderful, and just like really help you get in touch with the child that I hope is inside all of us. And so I want everyone to read and love those books. So next one is recommend an underrated book. Okay, sorry future editing Emily, but I'm gonna need to actually think about this when I look at a list of the books that I've read recently. So I'm gonna edit in something here for that one. Last book you finished would be Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I listened to that audiobook and I finished that yesterday. So that'd be the last book I finished. And last book you bought, so I did a I I've recently been just buying a bunch of audiobooks and not really physical books, because that'll just be less for me to need to take home whenever, or back to where I live. Like, I am home with my family right now, but when I need to take my things back to where I live in Arlington, Virginia, it'll just be less to need to take back with me, or less that I'll need to send back to me. So I haven't been buying physical books. Just Fairy Loots are the recent physical things that I have, but I did recently make an Audible order. They had their summer sale, and they had a lot of really good options that were super cheap. So I did a thing, and I got just a ton on Audible recently. I got Red Shirts by John Scalzi, Steelheart and Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which I've read, but I just adored the audiobook and want to keep a copy, so by Mackenzie Lee, as well as Circe by Madeline Miller, another one I've read, but I just wanted an audiobook copy. So, so those are the things that I've purchased recently. Weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark. I generally, as I'm starting a book, or a physical one where I need a bookmark, I generally designate a bookmark and pick one out before I start the book, and then I have that with me. So, yeah, I generally have a bookmark. So, but if I ever don't, for some reason, do that or can't do that, if I've started something maybe while I'm traveling and I just forgot to bring a bookmark, I'll just use whatever pieces of paper I have handy, maybe a dollar bill or something if I can't find any other pieces of paper. So that's honestly probably the weirdest thing I've used as a bookmark. Nothing too weird. Used books, yes or no? Absolutely yes. Most of the books that I have are used, and I love going to used bookstores and seeing what treasures I can find. I absolutely love going to library book sales, and I'm the person that will come away with like 20-25 books from a library book sale, or at least I have from the one at the local Arlington library. They've got a book sale twice a year. Of course, this year unfortunately they haven't been able to have one, but whenever they can next have one, I hope I have my physical TBR kind of dwindled down, because those library book sales are my downfall. Top 3 favorite genres, definitely fantasy is probably what I read most, next sci-fi, potentially thriller next, probably. So those are probably my top 3 genres. Borrow or buy. So I've been, because used books, I tend to not be able to restrain myself very much. I sometimes buy used books, and a lot of them at one time. But once I can get my physical TBR down and just actually read through a lot of what's on my shelves, I've been really good about doing that this year. But once I can do that a little bit, my goal is to get to a point where I have most of what I have on my shelf read, and then future reading tends to involve me borrowing things, and then the books that I buy are, for the most part, books that I've already read. That's the goal. We'll see if that'll ever happen, but that's the goal. And that way I'm not buying books I am not likely to like, or maybe won't like and need to just donate later. Characters or plot is the next one. I've come to find that I'm a pretty character-driven reader. Of course, a good plot is always appreciated, and I definitely like a good balance between characters and plot, but I can enjoy slow stories if I love the characters. So I'm a pretty character-driven reader. Long or short books? So it depends on the genre. Fantasy books I love long, because you get to spend more time developing the world and the characters and just the rules and the magic system. So for those I really like long books. But for other genres, typically shorter is better. Not like super short necessarily, but you know, otherwise I can just kind of feel like it drags on a lot. I don't know. Long or short chapters? Definitely short chapters. I don't know what monster would love long chapters, but I definitely feel like I can go through a book quicker with short chapters, mostly just because, especially if I'm just like in bed reading before I go to sleep, just like, oh, it's just one more chapter, I can read another 5 or 10 pages, it's fine. And then I don't know, it feels like it goes by a lot more quickly that way. The next question is, name the first 3 books you think of. The first things coming to mind are the David Bod trilogy, the Mistborn series, and those middle grade fantasies I mentioned earlier are the first things coming to mind, and maybe they've been on my mind recently, and so those are the ones. Yeah. Books that make you laugh or cry. I don't tend to cry at books. In fact, I think this is something I talked about in the major book freakout tag, which I'll link below. I don't think I've cried at all at a book this year. Last year, I'll need to think if I even cried at a book that I read last year. I don't know. It's been a while. They definitely can make me emotional, maybe a couple of tears, but I don't know. And books that make me laugh. Ooh. Okay, sorry, future Emily. I'm gonna need to actually look at some books I've read recently, and here are some, if I can edit some in, that have made me laugh. The next question is, our world or fictional worlds? Definitely fictional worlds. I'm forever in fictional worlds. And it's not that you don't want to, like, it's definitely good to think about actual things and problems that are happening in the world, and to learn about them, understand them, educate yourself, and work to resolve real problems in the real world. But for my, when reading is an escape for me, I tend to escape into fictional worlds. And just, those are the ones that just I get drawn to. I love fantasy and sci-fi so much, so it tends to be fictional worlds for me. Audiobooks, yes or no is the next question, and definitely yes, for sure. I love audiobooks. I've really fallen in love with audiobooks in the past year and a half in particular, and right now I consume a decent number of books via audio. It just can be so much more convenient. Steady baby, steady. You're so good. It can be so much more convenient to listen to audiobooks, and so, I mean, of course not every kind of audiobook is going to work, and not every narrator is going to work, but I overall love audiobooks. Do you ever judge a book by its cover is the next question, and yes, I think if you say you don't, you're probably lying. So I definitely will look at a book and have that kind of pull me in to read the synopsis. So I won't read a book that has a pretty cover if the premise of the book is not interesting to me. So it might not necessarily influence whether I actually read the book, maybe, but I definitely do get drawn in by gorgeous covers, and it makes me intrigued to find out what the book is about, and then kind of go from there if I actually want to read it. But yeah. So the next question is book to movie or book to TV adaptations. And I don't watch a ton of movies or TV. I do watch a decent amount, especially recently. My family watches a lot of TV. So as I've been home, I've definitely watched a lot of TV. But I tend to read more than watch movies or TV. But I will say I tend to enjoy TV adaptations just because they can spend more time kind of telling the story of whatever book they're adapting. There definitely have been some successful movie adaptations, I think, but it's definitely a challenge to try to encapsulate an entire movie into, or an entire book into a shorter movie. Movie or TV show you preferred to its books? I'll have to see if I can think of anything. Generally, I prefer the book. And hi. Oh, wait. What's going on? Why did you lay down? Lay down, Goober. So the things that are coming to mind are at least movie adaptations that I really, really loved, or TV adaptations I really loved, actually are based on books I haven't read. So I love the Lord of the Rings movies. I haven't read the books yet. I overall really enjoyed Game of Thrones, but I have not read those books either. So I'll need to think about this one a little bit more. If I think of anything, I'll edit it in here. But the last question is series or standalones. I tend to read more in series, I think, than anything else. Of course, it's nice to have standalones, but I think I tend to read more series than I do standalones. So anyway, those are all of the questions. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be sure to link my Twitter and Instagram down below. That's where I like hanging out. Of course, I'll continue to link ways to support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!